The road stretched out like a black ribbon, winding its way through the desolate landscape. Twisted trees clawed at the edges of the asphalt, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, a heavy perfume that clung to the night. An unsettling quiet blanketed the area, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant cry of an owl. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie, pale light that painted the scene in shades of grey and black. Shadows danced and shifted, playing tricks on the eyes. It was a road less travelled, a place where secrets whispered on the wind and the veil between worlds felt thin. A sense of isolation permeated the air, a feeling of being utterly alone in a vast, unknowable expanse. The wind picked up, whistling through the trees like a mournful spirit. The temperature dropped noticeably, a sudden chill that sent shivers down the spine. It was the kind of night that made you want to be anywhere else, a night that whispered tales of things that go bump in the dark, a night perfectly suited for the unveiling of mysteries best left undisturbed. The silence was so profound it was almost deafening. It pressed in from all sides, a tangible weight that made it hard to breathe. It was the kind of silence that amplified every other sound, every creak and rustle, making them seem louder, more significant. This road held an unspoken promise of something unseen, a silent pact between the traveller and the unknown. Maria gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. The car had sputtered, coughed, and then died, leaving her stranded in the middle of nowhere. A wave of panic washed over her, a cold dread that tightened its icy grip around her chest. She tried the ignition again, but the engine only groaned in protest, a mechanical death rattle that echoed in the stillness. The silence that had been unsettling before now felt menacing, amplifying her isolation. She was alone, miles from civilization, trapped in a darkness that seemed to press in from all sides. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like a chorus of mournful spirits. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped bird, each beat a frantic reminder of her vulnerability. She reached for her phone, a glimmer of hope flickering in her chest. No signal. The bars were empty, mocking her desperate need for connection. She slammed her hand against the steering wheel in frustration, a strangled cry escaping her lips. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. Fear, raw and primal, consumed her. The moon seemed to watch her, a silent, unblinking eye in the vast, indifferent sky. The shadows danced around her, twisting into grotesque shapes that fueled her growing paranoia. She felt a sense of being watched, a prickling sensation on the back of her neck that suggested she was not as alone as she thought. She was a pawn in a game she didn't understand, a victim waiting for the unseen hand to make its move. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the darkness like twin beams of hope. Relief flooded through Maria, washing away the fear that had gripped her. She stumbled out of the car, waving her arms frantically to flag down the approaching vehicle. As it drew closer, she could make out the silhouette of a man behind the wheel. The car slowed to a stop beside her, and the driver rolled down the window. He was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. His name was John, he said, and he offered to help. There was something about his demeanour that both calmed and unsettled Maria. He had a warmth about him, a paternal gentleness. But there was also a flicker of something else in his eyes, something that she couldn't quite place. He listened patiently as Maria explained her predicament, his gaze steady and reassuring. He offered to take a look at her car, his voice calm and soothing. There was a quiet confidence about him, a sense of competence that eased her anxieties. He seemed to be a beacon of light in the encroaching darkness, a comforting presence in a desolate and frightening place. He tinkered under the hood for a few minutes, his movements practiced and efficient. The quiet hum of his car engine and the rhythmic clinking of his tools were oddly soothing. He spoke little, his focus entirely on the task at hand. There was an aura of mystery about him, a sense of someone who had seen and experienced much in his long life. He held his secrets close, veiled beneath a veneer of gentle kindness. "Been helping folks on this road for a long time," John said, finally breaking the silence. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if he were sharing a secret. "It can be a lonely place, especially at night." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Maria felt a shiver run down her spine, a prickle of unease despite his reassuring presence. He told her stories of other stranded travelers he had helped, tales of broken-down cars and near misses. His voice was soft, almost melodic, but there was an underlying sadness to his words, a hint of melancholy that resonated with the desolate landscape. Each story seemed to carry a hidden weight, a silent acknowledgement of the road's dark history. "This road? It has a way of taking people," he said, his gaze distant, as if he were looking at something beyond the realm of the visible. "But it also gives back in its own way." His words were cryptic, leaving Maria with more questions than answers. She sensed a deeper meaning hidden within his pronouncements, a veiled reference to something he wasn't willing to reveal. He spoke of the road as if it were a living entity, a sentient being with its own desires and whims. He described its moods, its temperament, its unpredictable nature. His words painted a picture of a road that was both beautiful and dangerous, a place of both solace and sorrow. He spoke of it with a reverence that bordered on awe, as if it were a sacred ground, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. Section 5. A glimmer of unease. John managed to get Maria's car started, much to her relief. She thanked him profusely, her heart overflowing with gratitude. But as she prepared to drive away, a strange feeling washed over her, a sense of unease that she couldn't shake. There was something about John that didn't quite add up, something that niggled at the back of her mind. His eyes, though kind, seemed to hold a hidden depth, a well of secrets that he kept carefully guarded. His smile, though genuine, seemed fixed, almost unnatural. The way he spoke of the road with such intimacy and familiarity was unsettling. He seemed to be more a part of the landscape than a traveller passing through. His presence felt both comforting and disturbing, a paradox that unnerved her. She drove away slowly, glancing back at John as he stood by the side of the road watching her. He remained there, a solitary figure in the vast emptiness, until he disappeared from view. The unsettling feeling lingered, a knot of unease that tightened in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd encountered something more than just a helpful stranger. The further she drove, the stronger the feeling became. It was a premonition, a sense of foreboding that clung to her like the damp night air. The road stretched ahead, dark and unknown, and she couldn't escape the feeling that she was being watched, that John's presence still lingered, a spectral companion on her journey. The encounter had left an indelible mark, a seed of doubt that would blossom into chilling realization. Section 6. Unmasking the Midnight Helper. The next morning, while having breakfast at a diner, Maria picked up a local newspaper. Her eyes scanned the headlines, idly taking in the news of the day. Then she saw it. A small article tucked away on page 5, a brief report that made her blood run cold. It was a story about a fatal car accident that had occurred on the same road where she had broken down, just a few years prior. The article described the accident in detail, the mangled wreckage, the lone victim. And then the name, John, the same John who had helped her. The article went on to mention that John had been a local resident who had died in a similar accident on the same stretch of road years ago. He was known for appearing to stranded motorists, offering help, and then vanishing. A local legend, some called it. Maria stared at the article, her heart pounding in her chest. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a terrifying picture. The kind eyes, the gentle smile, the unsettling familiarity with the road, it all made sense now. John wasn't a helpful stranger. He was a ghost, a spectral guardian of the lonely road. A wave of nausea washed over her, the breakfast she had just eaten threatening to reappear. She dropped the newspaper, her hands trembling. The diner, once a place of comfort and warmth, now felt stifling, claustrophobic. The world around her seemed to shift, to become unstable, as the reality of her encounter sank in. She had been face to face with death, and it had worn a kind smile. Section 7, The Legend Confirmed. The story of John, the Midnight Helper, had been circulating among locals for years. Whispers in dimly lit bars, hushed conversations around campfires, cautionary tales passed down through generations. He was a fixture of the lonely road, a spectral presence that appeared to those in need, offering aid and then vanishing without a trace. Some dismissed it as folklore, a ghost story meant to frighten travellers. Others believed. Mark, a truck driver who frequented the route, was one of the believers. He had heard the stories, but he had always been skeptical. Until one night he found himself stranded on the same desolate stretch of road, his engine giving out without warning. As he sat in his cab, contemplating his options, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was John, the same kind-eyed man from the stories. He offered his help, his voice gentle and reassuring. Mark, though unnerved by the sudden appearance, accepted his offer. John tinkered with the engine, his movements practiced and efficient. Within minutes, the truck roared back to life. Mark thanked him profusely, his heart filled with gratitude. As Mark drove away, he looked in his rearview mirror. John was gone, vanished into thin air. Mark had heard the stories, but he had never truly believed them, until now. He had encountered the Midnight Helper, the spectral guardian of the lonely road. The legend was real. Section 8. Another lost soul. Sarah, a young woman driving cross-country, found herself lost and disoriented on the winding road. Her GPS had malfunctioned, leading her down a series of increasingly desolate paths. As darkness descended, a wave of panic washed over her. She was alone, lost, and miles from civilization. Just as despair began to set in, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance. A car pulled up beside her, and an older man with kind eyes and a gentle smile rolled down the window. He introduced himself as John and offered to help. Sarah, relieved and grateful, explained her situation. John, with calming reassurance, offered to guide her back to the main highway. His presence was a beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. He led her through the maze of winding roads, his car a comforting presence in the desolate landscape. He spoke little, his focus entirely on navigating the treacherous path. There was a quiet confidence about him, a sense of knowing that eased Sarah's anxieties. He seemed to be more than just a helpful stranger. He seemed to be a part of the road itself. As they reached the main highway, Sarah thanked him profusely. She offered him money, but he refused, his smile enigmatic. He simply nodded, wished her safe travels, and then drove off, disappearing back into the darkness from which he had come. Sarah, though grateful, couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to John than met the eye. A lingering unease settled in her heart. Section 9. The Chilling Revelation. Days later, Sarah stumbled upon a local news website while researching her next leg of the journey. An article caught her attention, a chilling account of a spectral helper haunting the very road she had been lost on. The article detailed the legend of John, a man who had died on that road years ago and now appeared to stranded motorists, offering help before vanishing. The description matched the man she had encountered perfectly. The kind eyes, the gentle smile, the unsettling familiarity with the road. A cold dread washed over Sarah as she realized the truth. She hadn't been rescued by a kind stranger. She had been guided by a ghost, a spectral guardian of the lonely road. The realization sent shivers down her spine. The memory of his gentle smile now seemed sinister, his reassuring presence now a chilling reminder of her brush with the supernatural. The road, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, now held a new meaning, a dark secret whispered on the wind. She had encountered the Midnight Helper, and the memory would forever haunt her journeys. The legend of John, the Midnight Helper, was more than just a story. It was a chilling reality, a testament to the road's dark history and the spectral presence that watched over its lonely travellers. Sarah's encounter, like those before her, served to reinforce the legend, adding another chapter to the ever-growing tale of the Midnight Helper. Section 10. Eternal Vigil on the Lonely Road. The road stretches on, winding its way through the desolate landscape. The moon casts its eerie glow, painting the scene in shades of grey and black. The wind whispers through the trees, carrying the secrets of the road, the tales of those who have travelled its path, and the legend of the Midnight Helper. John, the spectral guardian, continues his eternal vigil. He appears to those in need, a beacon of hope in the darkness, offering aid and then vanishing without a trace. He is a part of the road, a permanent fixture in its haunted history. His presence, though unsettling, is a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, there is always someone watching, always someone there to help. The Midnight Helper, the spectral guardian of the lonely road, continues his silent watch, his legend woven into the fabric of the landscape. He is a chilling reminder of the thin veil between worlds, a testament to the enduring power of stories, and a constant presence on the road that never sleeps. He waits, a silent sentinel in the darkness, for the next lost soul to cross his path. He is the Midnight Helper, and his watch never ends.